This is my most requested video for quite some time, and that is the pre-market setup and the routine that I go through every morning before the market opens. Now, real briefly, I'm not a financial advisor, so nothing in this video should be taken as financial advice. And this setup that I'm going to show you, this routine, is strictly my own. I don't know what other traders do, and I don't particularly care. This is what works for me and is not representative of what other traders do, because again, I don't know what they do. I've developed my own pre-market routine over a number of years now, so I'm going to show you what I do. First things first, and there's 5 categories here. First category is the indexes. I have a look at the Oz 200, how it performed overnight relative to the US markets and the Nikkei and the European index. Well, not really the European. I look at the DAX, which is DE30EUR. I have a look at how that performed, usually on the daily chart as well, and just have a look. Right, the DAX is a little bit red, not too bad. US 30 has dropped quite a fair bit in the overnight session. And then there's JP225 USD, which is the Nikkei. And the Australian market follows the Nikkei actually quite heavily. So it's definitely worth paying attention to the Nikkei. And we see all the markets are basically in the red. Meanwhile, the Oz 200 kind of held its value, which is quite interesting. Normally, when all the markets are down, the Australian market follows, but we've kind of bounced off a major support level here, and it's been on a little bit of a weak uptrend. So that's the first thing I pay attention to for the broader macro view. The second thing I look at is the pre-market scanner at around 9:50 in the morning. I took a screen cap of this, and this is the top turnover list for the pre-market. Now, there's a few things that I look for. First and foremost is the market cap value must be below 10 billion market cap. I'm not interested in things like 60 billion, 120 billion, like these ASX top 10 stocks, not interested at all. So less than 10 billion market cap is the goal, and I want a turnover usually above 800K. That indicates that there's going to be something interesting happening on that stock usually. So I want a high turnover pre-market. That indicates that there'll be interest in the stock. Now, during the hype sector of the BNPLs, you'd have 1 to 2 mil for zip pay and afterpay and stuff like that. So there'd be the stocks in play for that day. I also look for the gap. So I ideally want something 2.5% or negative 2.5% or greater. So I'm looking for a nice gap, and all that criteria has kind of got to match. Obviously, the lower market cap stocks, like if we're talking like a micro cap, for example, HWK here has got a little red icon indicating it's got news. It's up 19% pre-market. It's got a bit of turnover, and of course, it's going to be low turnover because it's a micro cap stock as well. So that's what I pay attention to, and that's if it's a bit of a quiet day. There's not much news going on, but that's the third category that I look at is news. This is by far the most important category. And I usually just open up Hot Copper, set it to price sensitive. I like the format, I like the layout. And it takes about 20 minutes for news to actually come out when there's a headline. So I use ComSec or I use my Iris platform to actually read the news. But I just use Hot Copper to browse because I just like the way it looks. It's something I've been using for so many years that I'm used to it. There's different ways to get this kind of news, whether you use the ASX website, Hot Copper, you can use Iris Trader through your broker, you can use ComSec, you can use NabTrade. It doesn't matter how you get your news. That's not important as long as you got news coming out. And really, it's about identifying what news is significant and what news is not. For example, we can go through this list from, say, 7:30 in the morning, have a browse, and we might see keywords like significant drill announcement or FDA approval or whatever. After so many years of trading, you really learn to just skim the headlines, and you can instantly pick out something that could be of significance. So if you're wondering, well, what is significant news? Well, guess what? You're going to have to sit at the computer every morning and pay attention to what moves, and then eventually you'll learn what's hot news. For example, if you're in your first week of trading and you're looking at the news and, you skip across an FDA announcement, FDA approval, and you're like, well, how was I meant to know that was good news? Well, guess what? Now you know. The stock rallies on a particular set of news, and then you just pay attention the next time that kind of news pops up again, and you kind of learn what's good and what's not. For example, rock chip news, rock chip for gold stocks. absolute horse shit. Sometimes it moves, but 90% of the time it sells off extremely heavy. So it's about paying attention to the news. This is by far the most important aspect of pre-market setup, is browsing the news. Let's say, for example, this XAM. I didn't see this one this morning. Additional high gold. Great, let's open it up. 80 mil market cap. It's a little bit high. Check out the news announcement. What are the grades? 180. Oh, actually, that's not too bad. Bit of copper, low grade. Pretty low grade gold as well. Not interested. It's already an 80 mil market cap company. If you guys don't know how to read drill results, I've got a video on that. I'll link it in the comment section below. But that's pretty much it. Just open news and that's it. Disregard any comments you see in Hot Copper ever. Never read other people's opinions. They don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. They're pretty much all brain dead. And now the fourth thing that I look for is what sector is in play. Now, I got a bunch of ETFs that I look at every morning, and it's up to you guys to develop your own ETF list that you want to look at every morning, whether it's lithium, gold, rare earths. Just be sensible about what's in your list. It's like, you know, if uranium's up 3% overnight, do you really fucking care? No one cares about uranium. I'm sorry, I don't care that it has a hype, like a little hype pump once a year. No one cares about uranium. So lithium, for example, has taken a big nosedive. A bigger one today was REMX, which is rare earth metals. This is the ETF for that one. It dropped 8%, 8.3%. So you're probably then wondering, well, what's a good rare earth stock to short? Well, then you got to find that out on your own as well. You got to shop for the stocks that have rare earths. Now, for me, I already knew LYC was Australia's largest, if not the world's largest, outside of China, rare earths miner. So for me, it was brain dead easy. The US was down, the Nikkei was down, the Oz was kind of dwindling, rare earths are down 8.5%. So for me, it was really clear to look at LYC short. This was perhaps the most obvious trade of the day that I've taken, and that was shorting the match. So if I bring up the daily chart, you can see, you know, it didn't gap down to $5.70. It only gapped down to about $6.05. Short it, ride the momentum, and you can see the correlation between REMX, which is this ETF, and the stock. Now, it's not perfect. The correlations aren't perfect, but I think it's pretty hard to ignore this monstrous sell-off. You can see it's kind of dwindling down while LYC was going sideways. And you got a monster drop, yet short the stock, indexes are down, you know, combine these things together and you got a pretty obvious short trade. So that's what I've taken. And yeah, so you got things like gold, for example. Gold's always good to look at. It's a bit of a broader term thing to look at. You know, there aren't too many significant price movements. It's worth looking at the overall direction of gold. And then you could probably trade something like, you know, let's see, you know, gold is up marginally today. I don't think it'll have a big impact. You could look at something like Northern Star, and you can see the sort of impact that gold has there. You know, there's quite a few ticks there. And it's worth paying attention to. Build your own ETF list. I'm not going to just hand you and spoon feed you the list of ETFs to look at. Develop it yourself. Learn to be a better trader. Don't just try and mimic other people. I'm just trying to give you a hand here of what I do and give you a sort of an insight. Now, the fifth thing I look at is chart setups and previous day follow-throughs. So, what happened yesterday? ART, it was the only thing that happened yesterday, really. And this is because it IPO'd. It's a cash flow positive spec stock. Well, not really spec, it was 250 mil pre-IPO, or the seed of the IPO, whatever, it was 60 cents. It gapped up to $1. So it's sitting around 450 mil market cap. It had a really nice day yesterday. And of course, it was all over the news. Doesn't matter what you looked at, ABC News, Channel 7, Channel 9, it was everywhere. Social media was talking about Airtasker as well. And of course, a lot of interest, a lot of positive sentiment. And you can see it reflected in today. Gapped up a little bit, took a bit of a swing down, and then just launched for the rest of the day. That's basically 90% gain from bottom to top today. So clearly, a stock that was going to be in play today, aside from shorting rare earths and shorting lithium stocks. And what we can see here actually, and this is pretty much a play for the rest of the day, is we got a pump, we got a big pump, and we're consolidating at the highs, and that's what I'm going to look out for the rest of the day, is whether it breaks out of this range and retests the high of $1.90. So there we go. That's my pre-market setup. I don't think it's overly complicated. So just to break it down, I look through the pre-market gap ups and gap downs through Spark. I look at the indexes from last night or the previous nights. I look at the ETFs that I've developed, that I've built a list for. I look at what sectors are in play, whether it's BNPL, lithium, rare earths, it doesn't matter. I look at entire sectors and determine what is currently hot at the moment. And then I look at previous chart setups and follow-throughs from the day. Now here's an example of a chart setup that I've paid attention to. Flight Center. We've got a real nice upward sort of trend here, but more like an ascending triangle really, or an ascending wedge. And it got rejected hard yesterday. Plus, the US was down, the Australian index was likely to go down, and we're just seeing a rejection of this double top and just a follow through for today. Because the US index is down so hard, and so is the Nikkei, and most likely the Australian index as well, this was going to be a sell-off as well, in my books. So this was a short on the match every day of the week, so was LYC, and focus on ART. So that's how I picked those 3 stocks to trade for today. I go through those 5 categories that I just talked through, and I narrow it down to what I think is worth trading. And that's pretty much it. I also look at the order book for each of these stocks for their setups and make sure that I'm on the right side of the book. I've got another video on how to read the tape or how to read the order book, so I'll link that in the comment section below. Also guys, for those of you who have swing portfolios, keep in mind we're heading to that time of the year where taxes need to be done. And if you want to automate your tax processes, you don't want to fiddle around with Excel spreadsheets, check out the link below for Sharesight. It pretty much automates everything for you in terms of taxes. And it's free, that's the most important part. And if you decide to get an annual plan, you get 4 months for free. So keep that in mind. And if you learned anything today, please do hit that sub button. I'd appreciate that very much. And smash that like button. Thanks, guys.